In Pierre Bonnard's painting, sunlight carries tangible weight and time unfolds as clear transparent mist. Throughout his lifetime he devoted his art entirely to portraying one woman named Martha, captured resting in her bathtub, lingering beside the dining table and standing in soft half-shadow beside the window. If you feel the modern world rushing far too fast, slow down and listen to this quiet story of pausing and freezing, fleeting moments in time. Tonight let us follow his brush into a gentle, unhurried world wrapped entirely in layers of warm color. Known widely as the magician of color, Pierre Bonnard chose instead a life defined by quiet, unyielding devotion and obsessive love. Upon his canvases he preserved Martha forever in the bloom of her youth, long after she aged, faded and passed away from illness. This is far more than a trivial anecdote of a famous artist. It is a long inward journey of memory, longing and quiet spiritual healing. Close your eyes, sink into the low soothing tone of gentle narration and feel the soft warmth of light and shadow breathing within Bonnard's timeless paintings. He remained an outsider amid the glittering bustle of Parisian high society, building a secluded private paradise entirely with his paintbrush. The works of Pierre Bonnard hold no dramatic twists or grand emotional surges, only small, ordinary daily moments stretched into quiet eternity. Yet behind every soft, tender scene lies his strongest shield against the chaos and unrest of the outside world. Tonight, beside the gentle glow of the burning hearth, we wander through the deep, lifelong affection and quiet destiny of this master of color. Imagine one day finding the person you love deeply trapped in endless obsession, solitude and inner fragility. How would you accept and stay beside them amid the magnificent, sweeping timeline of 20th century art? Pierre Bonnard left behind a puzzling, almost surreal enigma. He painted his wife Martha over and over for an entire lifetime, yet across hundreds of works she forever retained the youthful appearance of a woman in her 20s, even as she grew old, frail and sickly in real life. Within Bonnard's colorful canvases she remained eternally suspended in her glowing bathtub, an ageless phantom untouched by time. Tonight, accompanied by the softly flickering glow of the hearth, we walk fully into the untold life of this quiet soul. Through this tranquil tale you need not strive to memorize. Did the man known as the magician of color merely seek to record ordinary life, or weave a vast secluded sanctuary purely through paint and pigment? Pierre Bonnard was a soul who chose to slow down amid a noisy, restless era, blending quiet tragedy into soft light and shadow and turning physical suffering into gentle healing. Perhaps every one of us needs a private studio in the spirit of Bonnard, a quiet space to hold all those unspoken, ordinary moments hidden deep within the heart. The quiet crack that shaped their shared fate began with a chance encounter on the streets of Paris in 1893. At that time Pierre Bonnard was a vibrant, ambitious young artist, catching a fleeting glimpse of a petite, delicate woman aboard a passing tram. Her name was Martha. Claiming descent from a once wealthy, fallen Italian noble family, Bonnard was instantly captivated by the fragile, mysterious aura that lingered gently around her. It was not until 30 years later, when they finally stepped forward to marry, that Bonnard discovered to his quiet shock Martha had lived behind a carefully crafted lie spanning half her lifetime. She was not of noble lineage, nor did she bear the name she had given others. She was simply a runaway woman born into humble origins, too afraid to reveal her true identity to the world. Most might have felt betrayed and turned away, yet Bonnard simply fell silent. Setting aside legal documents and hidden truths, he soon came to understand that Martha suffered from severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and crippling cleanliness, spending countless hours each day lingering in the bathtub, endlessly washing and cleansing her body. This strange, fragile condition, unbearable to ordinary people, became the endless wellspring of artistic inspiration for Bonnard. Amid the steamy, hazy mist rising from the bathroom, he captured the most profound, quiet loneliness hidden deep within human emotion. He never sought to expose her lies, cure her inner turmoil, or force her to conform to the outside world. Instead, he picked up his paintbrush and stepped quietly into her closed, secluded inner realm. To him, love was never about judgment, correction or demand. It was about finding gentle, shared order within her repetitive, fragile routines. If you look closely at Pierre Bonnard's paintings, you will notice a uniquely cinematic quality unlike any other artist of his time. He never painted directly from life, believing what the eye sees in the moment is often plain and ordinary, while scenes filtered and preserved by memory alone hold true, eternal authenticity. He would sit quietly in a corner like a patient, silent observer, studying the gentle way Martha bent to test the warmth of bathwater, watching soft golden sunlight creep slowly across the edge of the dining table. Only when night fell and the world grew quiet would he return to his studio, surrounded by walls covered in blank canvases, recreating those fleeting, vanished moments of light, color and shadow entirely from memory. This delayed way of creating lent his works a dreamlike, soft slowness. In his quiet brushwork, ordinary bathrooms transformed into radiant, sacred chambers glowing like polished gemstones, and Martha became the sole, quiet priestess dwelling within that private sanctuary behind this overwhelming tenderness of color, however, lay their reclusive, almost obsessively withdrawn way of living, choosing to avoid all social gatherings and outside contact. Bonnard moved with Martha to a quiet rural retreat, living simply, keeping to themselves with no other audience but one another. The balance between them was quietly complex. Martha relied entirely on Bonnard for shelter, support and protection, while Bonnard drew endless artistic nourishment and quiet inspiration from her fragile routines and isolated inner world. They stood like two intertwined trees growing deep within remote mountains, supporting one another yet twisting tightly together to the point of gentle suffocation. Wars sweeping across Europe, shifting artistic movements, and the dazzling indulgent nightlife of Paris all remained locked outside, sealed away behind the thick layered hues of his paintings. Fate often casts heavy stones into the calmest waters, and during the 1920s Pierre Bonnard fell into a devastating psychological crisis that nearly shattered his quiet world. He attempted to break free from their closed, repetitive routine, falling in love with a young female student named Lucy and planning to run away and start a new life far away. Yet Martha, long sheltered beneath Bonnard's quiet protection, reacted with extreme desperation, retreating into severe mental collapse and worsening physical illness, pulling him back firmly to her side. In the end, Lucy fell into despair and took her own life, consumed by sorrow and heartache, overwhelmed by heavy guilt and regret. Bonnard returned silently to stay beside Martha forever. This failed attempt to escape made him accept the inevitable, realizing he could never abandon the steamy, quiet bathroom world they had shared. From that moment onward his painting style shifted dramatically, his colors growing more intense, fiery and faintly tinged with haunting, burning warmth. The golden sunlight flooding his canvases seemed less like natural daylight and more like the quiet outflow of blood from his fractured, remorseful heart. He began revisiting and reworking his older paintings endlessly, some pieces taking 10, even 20 years to reach final completion. This stubborn resistance against the passage of time stood as his last quiet rebellion against the helplessness of fate. He painted far more than just Martha's daily presence. He painted the heavy price of loyal commitment born from regret, and the quiet cost he chose to pay for sinking willingly into their shared, secluded life. Every layered stroke of pigment upon the canvas became a quiet act of mending the broken fragments of his own soul. As the shadow of the Second World War spread across Europe, Pierre Bonnard and Martha had already grown old and frail, living in a small, simple house near Cannes. They survived on meager wartime rations and quiet solitude. In 1942, Martha, who had accompanied him, obsessed, fragile and loyal for nearly half a century, passed away peacefully in her sleep. Bonnard wrote only one quiet line in his diary: "All my happiness has left with her." Yet strangely, for 5 long years after Martha's death, Bonnard continued painting her endlessly. He shut himself away inside the empty, silent bathroom, caressing the leftover soap she once used, breathing in the faint, lingering scent of her presence in the still air within his ongoing canvases. Martha remained forever frozen in her 20s, lifting water gently with light, graceful movements, untouched by aging, sorrow or death. To contemporary art critics, this persistent fixation seemed outdated, detached from the times, even a sign of unhealthy retreat into illusion. Yet for Bonnard it was his only reason to keep living with color and light. He built a parallel, timeless realm where his beloved remained immortal beyond the reach of decay and loss. He dissolved all the sharp, stinging pain of fate into the subtle balance of warm orange, golden hues and deep violet blue tones. While the outside world crumbled into ruin beneath artillery fire and chaos, Bonnard stayed quietly in his studio, guarding the eternal soft glow of a sunset that never faded away. In 1947, at the age of 80, Pierre Bonnard lay weak in his hospital bed, bathed in the bright southern French sunlight streaming through the window. In his final fading moments he asked his nephew to fulfill one last wish: to repaint a patch of dull green in the lower corner of his painting, flowering apricot tree into brilliant, vivid yellow. Even at the very end of his life he still chased endlessly after that perfect, soothing balance of light, color and quiet harmony. Now we return to the quiet enigma raised at the beginning of this tale. Why did he keep painting their ordinary life, woven with hidden lies and quiet fragility? Perhaps Bonnard understood deeply that life itself is a gentle illusion, and only love, beauty and quiet devotion can lend that illusion lasting dignity and grace. What he left behind is not merely a collection of masterpieces, but a gentle, slow-acting remedy for the anxious, rushing soul of humanity when we grow weary, exhausted and unsettled amid the restlessness of the modern world. Bonnard's soft, harmonious colors always calm the heart, restoring inner peace and quiet stillness. Answering the quiet question from the prologue, he never ran away from life's hardships. Instead he built an eternal, monumental realm of peace using nothing but tiny, ordinary daily moments. The story has reached its gentle close, and the flowing light and shadow within his paintings will keep watch over you through this long, quiet night. Sink into sleep wrapped in this Warm lingering calm. The world may be chaotic and restless, yet there always exists a quiet sanctuary of light and color reserved only for your soul. Rest now and drift into peaceful untroubled dreams. Good night.